and we're in part 3 of the Blender tutorial now, the fundamentals of modeling in Blender. We've covered adding meshes, we've covered translating, rotating, scaling, locking objects to axes. And this is what we would have come up with last time, just getting all these things on the screen. What we're going to do is push A, to select everything. So make sure everything's got that little orange dot on it. Hit X and delete it all. Alternatively, you can just click File, New, but we're not going to use the camera or the light source for this. So what I'm going to do is set my cursor back to the center. If you remember, that is Shift S and cursor to center. And I'm going to add a mesh. I'm going to add a cylinder for this one. And I'm going to give it 12 vertices. It's just going to be a little easier to work with when we're looking at what's going on. If you don't change that down, that's going to make it quite complex for you. It's not going to look as good either. It's not going to have that low poly style that we're going to be aiming towards later on. The radius and depth don't matter because we're going to change those shortly anyway. Now what we've got here is our cylinder. We're going to move this up a little bit. We're going to just move it up 1 unit, so hold Control. That way it should be just sitting on top of the grid there. That's not really a problem. And we're going to go into edit mode. Now there's 2 ways to go into edit mode. That is change it to edit mode here, from object mode to edit mode, or you can hit Tab. Tab will change between the last 2 modes that you've used. We're pretty much just going to be sticking with edit mode and object mode for the time being, so you can just push Tab to hit between those 2. Now when you go into edit mode, it'll say edit mode down here. Just note that if you go add, see how it doesn't give you the option to add a mesh? You don't want to add any new meshes in edit mode by accident. Okay, there may be times when you want to add a mesh to edit mode, but what this will do, say I add an icosphere and I move it over here, and then I go back to object mode. These are now the same object. I can't move them around separately. So just be careful with that. Another thing to be careful of is any changes that you make in edit mode. So 1, 2, don't do this, it looks horrible. 1, 2, 3. I go back to object mode and I hit Control Z. It undoes all of them. So just be aware that it will undo everything that you do if you do an undo step in object mode. You can redo it with Control Shift Z though. So it is an easy fix. So we're in edit mode here. And there's 3 different selection modes that we can use. So down here, these are the different selection modes. Vertex mode allows you to right click to select individual vertices. If you hold Shift, you can select multiple vertices. If you push B, you can actually draw a box around multiple vertices. And C will let you paint vertices. And there is another one which I can't remember off the top of my head, but allows you to kind of like draw a lasso around it. I'll remember that one later on, and or probably accidentally discover it. But there is another selection tool. But for most part, we're going to be selecting individual vertices in here. The second one is edge mode. That allows you to select an entire edge. So an edge is a connection between 2 vertices. And the last is face mode. So face mode, it'll bring up these little dots on here, and it allows you to right click on those dots and move them around, make a selection. Once again, multiple, holding Shift and right clicking will select multiple. Now I'm going to just show you a really common mistake here. You'll notice here now what's happened is somehow there's these dots that are on the line. Okay, so there's these dots that are on the line. What that actually means is that there is a hidden face here. It's going to cause problems later on if I try to do things like bevel, when I try to render stuff. There's a face here that the computer is calculating how it's going to render it. It's calculating things for it, and it's going to cause a lot of issues. I'll just show you that there is a hidden face. There it is. I've just moved that top bit up, and there's a hidden face in there. If you get that, there is a quick way to fix it. It's by clicking remove doubles. You'll have to select the whole model and click remove doubles, and then you'll see that they're gone. The better way is I'll show you how it happens. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select this top face, and I'm just going to move it around a little bit so you can see it. And what I'd like you to do is to just scale it in a little bit. So hit S, scale it in a little bit like that. So we've kind of got a stand. I'm not sure what you call it. If you think of like a lion tamer, the little footstool that they stand on. And then just pull that top bit down. We're not being exact here. This doesn't matter too much. Now I'm going to use a technique called extruding. This is going to add extra faces to the model and allow me to move it around. E is extrude. And you don't need to drag. Blender, you don't need to drag the mouse for much at all. But when I hit E, I get these extra faces and I can kind of stretch it out upwards as far as I want. Now what tends to happen is people hit E and then they click the mouse button. And that's when you get these extra faces, because it's extruded, but it hasn't extruded anywhere. So you've got to be careful of that. Just Control Z will undo it. So we're going to extrude up, and we just get this shape. So we're kind of having a little rocket shape here. Now I'm going to do what's called an inset. An inset is kind of like an extrusion, but on the corners of a face or on the side of a face. You'll see I does an inset, and I can bring the top of a shape in. Okay, so I'm going to bring it in. So I've just got this little inset around there. Then I'm going to extrude up again, like that. So we've got this shape here. Now we're going to go down to the bottom of this, so you can just rotate so we're looking at the bottom, and right click on the bottom. And I'm going to inset this, and then I'm going to extrude it down, but not too much. Okay, so you can see what's happened here. If I look at it this way, it could be like a torch that hangs on a wall with some flames coming out the top. It could be a little torchlight, a flashlight. It could possibly also be the start of a lightsaber. It could be anything. We're going to go back to this one though, and I'm just going to pull this up a little bit. What I often see people do, they want to make this longer, and they know how to extrude, so they just hit E and add that, which works, but then you've got all these extra faces. It's not good. So we're just going to pull that up so we've got a bit more space there. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. What I want to do is modify this so that it comes out on the top. And to do that, I can't just do an inset and go outwards. It doesn't let me. I can only inset inwards. I can't inset outwards. So I just hit escape and cancel that. What I can do though is extrude and click. And see, I've got those dots there. There's a hidden face though. I can scale this face outwards, just a tiny bit. So I hit S to scale it and scale it outwards. You see it's like that. Then I extrude the whole thing upwards. Just like that. Okay, so we're kind of looking at like a sword handle, an axe handle. Not sure what it could be at the moment, but it's something. We're going to turn it into a little bit of a castle tower though. That's what it's going to be. So what I'm going to do at this top bit here is extrude it again and scale this one out like that. Then I'm going to inset it a little bit. And I'm going to select every second one here, like that, and extrude these up. This middle bit, I'm going to inset it, extrude it down, like that. Okay, and so what we've got, we started with a simple cylinder, and we've ended up with some kind of a, maybe like a little carryable torch that a person in the game might be able to pick up, and there's a little fireball on the top there. It could be the hilt for a sword, or at least the handle for a sword. It could be a castle, a really basic little 2D castle with the parapets up the top there. This is what you should have created in this one here, just by using inset, extrude, and a few different scaling techniques as well. Go back into edit mode, check that out. Now, let's say I wanted to put something on top here. It would be, in this case, what I'm going to do is add it as a secondary mesh. So I'm going to add a cone, and I'm going to bring that all the way up. But I'm going to change the vertices to 12 so it matches what I've got here. Bring that up like that. And I'll go focus on it with the full stop. I'm actually bring that up just a bit more like that and hit right click. I'm going to bring these up into it. So I'm going to grab all of these. I'm not going to extrude. I'm just going to pull them up so that they go just past that, like that there. Okay, this one I'm going to scale down just a little bit, just like that. It doesn't matter that it overlaps here. I imagine if it was a real building, it would have some kind of overlap, some kind of thing to keep it together. And, well, that's pretty much it. So I've got a really tiny little tower here. Looks pretty good for 5 minutes of work. And that's our first little model. Okay, so we'll get into some more complicated modeling shortly, and then starting to add materials to it, looking how to render, and so on and so forth.